Hello, everybody, and welcome today to our uh, session today, where we are going to talk about the group policies, best practices, and we are going to go through the common exercises here that we have been getting it from partners as a feedback. We are seeing some partners in terms of how they've been trying to configure that, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it works. So we are going to solve those generic queries and questions in terms of how to ideally optimize and utilize the policy group function. For the past 2 days, we also had certain sessions being conducted here to talk about how to use policy groups and how to use your defaults for packages. And today, we are just going to quickly glimpse through both of these items just to make sure that we are all on the same page. And then we'll open up for questions about anything that you see difficulties or any questions that you have for your policy groups or using it as defaults in general for the policies and packages piece of it. So very quickly, let's start with how the hierarchy here is with ConnectWise. So at the very top end of the function, we have the ConnectWise defaults, which is what we call as a global. And when it's set as global, it's usually turned off. All the policies that we have been releasing so far, they are turned off, but because we don't want anything to be enforced by default out there. The partners can create their respective policies, tweak them. There's no limit to creating a policy. You just need to make sure that they get included in the corresponding packages, or you include them within your policy group's configuration. Right after the default, which is the ConnectWise global default, there comes the partner level default. And this partner level default is any package that is marked as default. And we'll quickly go through a quick demo around that particular thing, how that default thing works. But let's just kind of go through the agenda items here. So that's the default, which means every new company and site that you're going to get creating in the RMM side of things, all the configurations within that default is going to get applied. Then we have a site level thing. Let's say you have a site that doesn't want to go the default route of it. There is some configuration changes specifically across multiple domain areas. We would recommend creating a new site level package and assigning that site level package over to that site. If in case that still doesn't solve the problem, you want to apply something across multiple customers, but specifically targeted to endpoints like all Windows 10 machines, irrespective of what site it belongs to. All Windows 11 machine, no matter what site it belongs to, these groups, they perfectly make sense in terms of doing those kind of changes across multiple companies and sites. The last one at the list is the overrides out here. Now, this overrides that we are talking about is a device level override. What you could do is you could practically open a device, look at their settings, and just override something with the value that you don't want the defaults or the site level things to work. You could have n number of overrides, but the reason why I've kept at the very bottom is because it becomes cumbersome at times to manage those individual endpoint level overrides. So as a best practice, we recommend to use the policy groups as the default in terms of exclusions services for defining what you don't want, how you want to see across multiple endpoints together. Now, a couple of reasons that we have also looked at is why we need to have defaults. It's basically reducing overheads. We've seen partners trying to create individual site level packages, and every time they create a new site, they go and create a new package and then apply to that specific site, which we feel it's a tedious and a cumbersome activity. We could always have a kind of a catch-all as a default. So every time you create a new site and start adding up the endpoints, the default applies to those endpoints at that site, and it still performs some operation without having to add additional steps out there. And the other part to that is it also provides you higher amount of flexibility in terms of defining what is common across multiple clients and what are uncommon things that you can again use a different package around what kind of things that needs to be done at that site. And for the policy groups, again, as I mentioned, we recommend using policy groups when it doesn't fit the criteria, that you don't want to use the defaults. It doesn't fit the criteria, but you just want to use the site level packages. It's kind of commonalities across multiple endpoints, or you want to use it as an exceptional policy. I can give one good example for using policy groups and default is remote access. Like majority, or I would say except for a very few of these devices, you always want remote access to be applied, policy to be applied, so that the Screen Connect gets deployed on the endpoint as soon as you install the RMM agent. And then you want certain endpoints, because of some compliance reasons or for some other reasons, you don't want Screen Connect to be deployed on those endpoints. In such case, instead of using policy groups and then making a little exceptional policy out there, we would recommend that the remote access by default becomes a part of your default package, and then you set the endpoints that should not have Screen Connect deployed. We could use a custom field which says Screen Connect excluded. Value is yes. We create a policy group that looks at that custom field value at the site level or the endpoint level, whichever way you want to try with that. And all the endpoints which meets that particular criteria would not have Screen Connect deployed on the machine. That way, when you grow, when you scale up, you don't need to always look back and see, oh, how many exclusions have I set? Like manually going through each one of them and identifying where Screen Connect is not present, it could become cumbersome. It might solve the problem in the interim, but in the long run, that might just pose a lot of problems. And that's what we are trying to recommend in terms of excluding that. Here's the article that we have published in our university that talks about the policy groups and definitions. So I'm just trying to keep it open. So if you want to refer it by the time when we go through those demos, we can always go through that. And I'm just going to pull out my test instance out here. So this is a very limited test instance that I have here, but we can definitely look at other questions and items that you have, and we can go through them, answering one by one. So very first, where is this whole setup available? So the setup is under settings, and you'll see there are sections for policies. I'm just going to open it up here. I'm going to go for packages as well. So first thing starts with policies. Now, the general definition of our policy is any kind of configuration that you would like to apply. That's where you go ahead and create a policy. Now, policies could be for different domains, and we are creating different policies for each and every domain in the system. And what I mean by domain is what area of product or feature is that policy going to be performing or making configuration changes out here. So here are a set of all the policies that I have, and again, there are no limits. You could go and create unlimited amount of policies for that. So go ahead and create your different set of configurations, for that. And for the sake of simplicity here in the conversation, we are going to pick up patching, because that's the most commonly asked question in terms of the policies and functionalities around that. So let's check out the desktop patching. I'm going to put the name as demo test, and I'm going to put the date here so that I can easily find that later. All right. Now, if you look at the configurations, so one thing, if you notice within the policies, we don't include anything that you cannot repurpose across multiple sites. So we try to keep it as generic as we can to make it super simple and reusable in all good reasons. If you look at the security settings, so here's all the patch classifications that you have, the security patching items and the non-security patches all lined up over here. There's the OS upgrade, there is the Mac, there is the schedules in terms of when you would like to download, when you would like to install, when you would like to reboot those endpoints, and along with that, how do you want these users to get notified around when and how the machines would interact with the end users when the patching needs to perform a reboot operation to complete that patching cycle out here. So let's say I go ahead and make this. I'm just randomly picking up. I'm not trying to really create an actual policy how it's supposed to be, but I'm just making it up here very quickly for you. So let's say this is my configuration. I'm going to download and install, and I'm not going to reboot the machine. I don't want to notify my end users as well. So I'm going to save this as a policy. And you could, as you would see, I already have some policies created for patching. So it just adds up another one. So you can always look at from the type here. So the type shows down all the different kind of variants that we have created in the policy. Now, the second thing that we try to do here is go to packages. So when you create a policy, but that policy is not being applied via package or policy groups, that's not going to do anything for you. It's just the endpoint is just going to wait for those instructions, and these instructions are specifically going to come only from the packages or policy groups here. Now, one thing that you notice here, I have the first package that's being marked as default. So I just created something as the ConnectWise recommendations here, just trying to demonstrate it. So even if I'm showcasing these policies, these are not recommended by ConnectWise for that. But the important point that I want to bring it up here is this checkbox here with this for the set as default package. So this default package is primarily going to apply all the configurations that you see underneath here, the desktop patching, server patching, remote access, communicator, PSA, third party, and RMM site. All of these are going to be applied to a site as soon as I create a new company and site in the system. I don't need to go back and manually assign a package unless I would like to set a different package altogether. But to begin, it will have a default package that is applied to that specific site. We also show you all the available policies on the right-hand side here. So you see all the policies. We are grouping them by device level policies and site level policies. There was a question being asked commonly from partners like, why do you have something at the device level and why do you have something at the site level? The answer is things that we would like to control and allow you to make changes and update configurations at an end level, which is the endpoint. That's where we go ahead and create a device level policy and made available for you. But if in case certain things like the PSA policy right now or the RMM enablement or the knock enablement function, these are all limited at a site level. You cannot enable and say, I want knock at these sites or I just want RMM enabled for this particular one endpoint, because these are kind of applied at the site level. On all the endpoints under that specific site, they kind of inherit that particular data. So that's the definition why we have site and why we have devices out here. But the thumb rule between for creating a package is it will only support one policy per package. I'll repeat, it will only support one policy per package. You could have n number of package, you could have n number of policies created, but when you're creating a definition for a package, it'll only support one. I can do a quick demonstration here. So if you look on the right-hand side, I created this particular policy today just for the demo, but I also have the desktop patching, the RMM defaults out here. If I'm going to drag and put this item here, the one that's right below that, the RMM defaults, it's going to be thrown back in the cart on the right-hand side because it will only allow one domain function to have it. So the system doesn't need to basically try and deduce, should I use this policy or should I use the other policy, because they may be contradicting to each other, right? So one of them might say, go ahead and deploy and reboot the machine, and the other one would say, just deploy the package, but don't reboot it. So in this case, the system is going to get really confused with that. So you could just modify the things as you need it, and you can hit the save button. That's where the package gets applied. Now, one thing that we do is you assign policies to packages, and packages are assigned to sites, and that assignment happens from the Sites tab. So under the Sites tab, we'll list down all the RMM sites. You can just basically do multi-click and click on the assign package. We'll show you all the packages. You cannot assign a policy directly to a site. You can only do it through the group, the policy groups, if you would like to apply that. But this assignment or removal of packages against that specific site overrides the defaults. So I had a default. I went ahead and created these company's insights and applied the package. And the default will by default take that up over there because that's the definition of the default. But because I created a separate one because their needs were different, their configurations are supposed to be different, that's when I come back over here and update it. If you don't want to change that and the default which you're using is right way of assignment for that site, no action needed from your side, and that is what we want. You can create these packages out, which are very common, and you don't need to do an extra step unless it is really needed for you to change. And at the end, we have these policy groups out here. And as I said, policy groups are grouping of devices in a way. Think more closely about it as device groups. I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar about the device groups concept. We give you criterias. These criterias are based out of asset data, which is the endpoint information. It also looks at the custom fields. It also looks at the site information so that you can do a mix and match. So we'll quickly do one of the configurations here. So if I click on the OS patch in desktop, I get two buttons at the top. One is for the existing device group where you could just repurpose an existing device group if you have created, or you can just create a brand new one, your choice. They both are, in a way, they're identically same. So the next thing when I'm creating a policy group, it gives you an option, tell me what's the assigned policy, and I can say I want to use the 25th of April policy that I just created. But down here, I'm going to be provided with criteria. I can define what kind of endpoint fit this rule. I can say I want to go for all my available devices. So right now, because I'm not applying more ands and ors, it's showcasing me all the devices that you see here. So I can always click on this number and it'll show me all devices that meet this criteria. And again, if I want to further narrow it down, just use the Chris Craftboard HQ thing here, I can say site. It will prompt me for all the available sites, and I'm going to pick the HQ Chris Craftboards. And if you see the number dropped from 6 to 4, and these are the 4 devices. If I would further like to clarify and drill it down by looking at other attributes or custom fields that you have, feel free to add them. It allows you to create a more complex kind of a structure. You can create this as a criteria in the mathematical terminologies, like these are the brackets that you can resolve. You can also add an outer bracket, which you can see either the machine should be available and belongs to this specific site, or it should have this particular flag, which is act. In this case, the system will evaluate this, and it'll evaluate this, and whichever meets the criteria, it falls into this particular bucket straight away. So let's try to use this, and I'm going to say as demo testing 25th. I'm going to hit the save button. That's where I get my policy group created. And as soon as the policy group is created, because it knows the target endpoint, if you see, it doesn't really fit into this. It just created that, and the 10 devices are automatically applying that particular configuration. Now, one thing that you could also do here is you could move these policy groups that are created and rearrange them in the order. When I say rearrange, because we evaluate them from bottom to top. If you want that this particular policy group should be evaluated first, then it should be right at the bottom of that particular screen. So whenever we start evaluating, we start from the bottom. If the machine will fit this particular criteria, it will not try to evaluate any other criteria above them. No matter the device would fall into the same criteria also. This one would always take over. If it doesn't fit this one, then it goes to the next one, and it goes to the next one. If policy groups don't support that, I'll just go back and pull up the slide that I had here. So overrides, I'll very quickly show you the overrides as well. So here are the groups, bottom-up evaluation. If it doesn't go, it goes to site. And if it doesn't have, it goes to the default, and it doesn't have, it goes to the global, which is turned off. And that's where we want you to also have the defaults at the partner level to be enabled against that specific site as well. So this is the policy groups part of it. And if I go down to the devices here, I can open any one device. And if you notice, when I go to a device, there is a settings tab available over here as well. And when I go to the settings, that settings will show me what is net effectively getting applied on this machine. Now, this could come from the global default. It will come from ConnectWise or the partner defaults. It might come from site, might come from policy group, it might come from override. So this is a classic example here. If you see global, it is disabled function by default, which is the ConnectWise default, the very top of the pyramid, the inverse pyramid that we had. Partner, this is coming from the default over here, the partner defaults that we had. And if there is group over here, that means it's taking up the membership for this particular device from a group membership. And wherever you see these devices are indicating that there is an override set against that device. And those indicators are these red lines out here. So wherever you see the policy name as override, that means somebody has overridden this particular policy, and it will show up over here. In order to remove these overrides, you can either click on the button which says remove override. This will remove the domain function override that is set in the system. But if you click on this remove all override, that means it'll remove the overrides for our communicator, and it'll also remove the override that is for the patching server configuration that you have here. I'll just quickly demonstrate one, or I'll just create another one here for, let's say, for Axion. I'll just try this. For Axion, I'm just going to enable this, and I'm going to hit the save button. So now you have 3 overrides, and if you notice, by the time I made this change, the OS patching desktop, the group membership criteria that we created, it applied that, and if you see the policy name, it shows the 25th April thing that is getting applied here. So it's also telling you from what package or the group this evaluation ended. So if you have like multiple hierarchies within the policy group, you know to specifically pinpoint and figure out where that item got applied for, right? So very quickly, I'll first try removing a device level override. I'll take the Axion one. I'll click on the remove overrides. And what I did was I just removed it for that domain area. So it just took the default back to the global one, which was before I kind of went ahead and created these override. Now, if I want to remove the other two as well, I can just click on the remove all overrides and it's going to remove it. So what it did was anything that you had at the endpoint level, it removed it. But if you notice, the group policy ones that came from the system, it still remained intact in the system. It never lost it because that is a whole definition coming in. And just for simplification and just to monitor this, you can always look back here, what are these groups available? Every time you will add a new policy group, the system reevaluates the endpoints, making sure that those endpoints that fill that particular criteria, and dynamically in the future, if they get added or removed from that, the policy would change the state. It'll change the configurations down on the endpoint. All these computation happens in near real-time fashion, so it doesn't take a lot of time, and the system should be ready to process the actions that are expected here. All right, so that's all about the policy group. We can start taking up questions if there are any, and in case if somebody wants to just unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself and ask questions, but I'll first try going through the existing questions that are put up and trying to answer them for you. One second. All right, creating a new one right now, try 2 browsers and have the same error. I think, Marcus, you're seeing something went wrong error message. You can try 2 things here. One, try clearing the browser cache or cookies, and in case if that still doesn't solve the problem, I would recommend reaching out to the support team, and the support team should be able to quickly review that and assist you further with your issue that you're facing while creating the new policy. The second question is there a way to find out if the policy has requested a reboot from the user? So the answer for this is currently no. So there is no report right now which could tell you if the user got that notification. We are working on extending the audits for the patching at an endpoint level, where you will see the full transactional updates or transactions happen on the endpoint, where the patching initiated a reboot prompt and the user kind of you know pushed it over. In either cases, it should be fine. All right, next one in here. Does a new policy group actually create dynamic device group? In other words, if you go to device groups, can you see the newly created policy group, or they are completely separate? So Scott, they are completely separate, but they actually use the same engine that is being designed in the backend for the device groups and the policy groups. That's where if you start from one of the domain functions, you have a button that says add an existing device group, and when you click on an add an existing device group, we show you all the existing device groups made available here. So in case if you are trying to build some dynamic groups that you are trying to repurpose and reuse within your policy groups for definitions in terms of patching, communicator, remote access, and other stuff, and also use it on the devices for filtering and applying it across other domain areas for suspension and monitors and patching in other areas, then we recommend you to use the device group and just link that particular thing here. Every time you make a change to the device group, it will also make a change to the policy group as well. But while we've been interviewing partners, they all expected to have to keep them separate so that if some users are making some changes within the policy group, the device group doesn't change, and vice versa for that. All right, there is another question. If they are separate, if you use add existing device group to create a policy group, what happens if you update the criteria for the original device group? Does it update the new policy group, or is the new policy group completely disconnected copy? As mentioned, Scott, I didn't read the other one, but I kind of answered the same thing. They are connected with each other if you're using the add an existing device group. So whenever the group membership of that device changes based on the criteria that you change or new endpoints getting added, the policy groups would also start changing and evolving and updating the definitions to those new endpoints or updated endpoints as well. Yeah, the second browser was clear. Marcus, I think that's the continuation to the initial problem that you posted there. I would recommend to open up a support ticket and have one of our support representation review that particular case for you. All right, next question is, I'm not using policy groups. I have a package set to site. Do I need policy groups also? So the answer to that is no. It's not mandated that you need to use the policy groups. If your criteria or the request that you're trying to fulfill for your clients from a monitoring and management perspective, if it's getting fulfilled from the sites, then policy groups are no longer needed. But I'll give it a good example here. If you have certain endpoints that you don't wish to patch ever, I'm taking the example of patching, but it could apply for remote access as well. So you don't want certain things to happen across multiple endpoints. There are critical servers. You don't want to patch them. You would like to prefer doing a manual patching for them. In that case, you could go here, create a custom field that says endpoints excluded from patching, set the value as yes or no. On those specific endpoints, you can set those values and come back in the policy group and create a policy group using the custom field. And here's one of the examples that I had created yesterday, even for the demonstration purposes here. So I'm using a custom field called as acting as a server, but in your case will be patching excluded or something, true or false statement, and you can just include them over here. So when you're editing the policy group here, you see acting as a server is a custom field, and I'm setting it as true or false. And this true and false basically kind of applies that across multiple endpoints. Now, if you did that across 100 sites, and now you want to review what 100 sites are basically setting that particular policy, you could just click on this, because we show you what devices meet this particular criteria in here. So you can click here and you can see the criteria. If you feel like you want to get rid of them, you just need to update the custom field. You don't need to really go and find that device, go to settings and override and removal. That's where setting manual overrides would be the last recommended option from us, because finding that device and doing it manually is a cumbersome activity. What is the difference between feature updates and OS upgrade? So a feature upgrade and OS upgrade is pretty much similar to you moving a device from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Windows 10 to Windows 11 is an OS upgrade, whereas feature update is 22H1, 22H2, 23H1, and any subsequent feature updates that the partner Microsoft will be rolling out. They all fall into the feature update. And OS upgrade is basically the version upgrade that will be offered and made available if that endpoint kind of meets the criteria where it's been offered for an upgrade and the policies enabled for that. We will initiate the OS upgrade process using the patching function that's available here. All right, next question. Any better luck for the third-party patching? I know you're going over device group, but since we're talking policies, I didn't get the full context with respect to the third-party patching, but third-party patching is also the same. You can have a policy created for third-party patching. So again, that is a device level policy available, and you can create a third-party patching policy. You can define the applications that ConnectWise supports today for third-party patching, and you can define the schedule time frame when we need to initiate the process. You can only set as update only, which means if the application is found on the target endpoints where the policy is applied, we will try and update it to the latest version. But in case if you have said update and install if missing, that means we'll do a deployment on the machine if that application is not found. And with the third-party patching, ConnectWise will always take the endpoints to the latest version, so there might not be the case for an interim version if needed. So we'll always take it up there. But the same rules for policy group applies here as well. You can create n number of policies out there, and if you would like to targetedly apply specific applications to specific target endpoints, you could practically do that. And one good thing also you can try doing here is, while you're creating these device groups, one of the criteria is installed software. So when you go for the install software, you can narrow down that particular results in terms of pulling it out. When you click this particular dropdown, the system is currently trying to group all the applications that are made available, and it categorizes them into the publisher, the application name, the version, and all of those details out here. So if I'm supposed to look for Google, so it is going to give you all the applications for Google. It is Chrome, and for all these test endpoints, you see all these versions that are made available. So if you want to set this for Chrome, and I'm setting it for all these values, you see that there are 3 devices that meet this particular criteria. And from the assigned policy, you could pick the third-party patching policy that only targets for Google Chrome. But I'm pretty sure you might want to do it for other applications as well. So for third-party patching and things like that, we recommend trying to go the site level route, because we would be able to do a mass update for other applications as well, and not just specifically targeting a machine. But this could be really handy where you want to do a targeted update for a specific version only. In that case, it will still help you and support you in terms of finding that out. I hope I kind of answered what you're looking for. All right, we got more questions in here. Can deploy only partner or knock approved option be available for critical updates and updates also? So the knock approved patches, we only do it for security updates. It's not available for all the other updates. So in general, just want to give you the cycle that we follow for patching. So second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft would release the patches out that's available. And within that, if we look at all the security patches, our team, we have a dedicated team that looks out for all these patches. We have our test environment, we evaluate, research, and certify those things. That's the knock approval pieces of it. And that's why we don't want to extend it to the other patches, but definitely we can look at options in the future. But as of now, we are only looking at the security updates only. Another one, is there a way to initiate a third-party upgrade, or is it only by schedule? So a good question here. So currently that is triggered via the policies only, but we are looking at option in terms of making it available as a part of our tasking or automation function. So it will still take the same input parameters. What all applications would you like to trigger for the updates, and you can target that and define the duration. So it will be some sort of a one-time activity that you wanted to do. You're kind of onboarding the customer, and because we have a function that says update or install only, we got some feedback from partner where those kind of features would really help in terms of improving the onboarding time that it takes for completing that activity. So yes, that's an item on our roadmap. We are looking at that. All right, how about a third-party patching tab or having that under OS patching? So we are looking at more options to cover additional applications as well. The team is currently evaluating and figuring out more options. Very soon you're going to hear from us the function improvement within the third-party patching. So I'll wait for that, and you should hear something pretty close to what you're asking over here. All right, what are the patching options that have changed from Continuum to ConnectWise? So the overall functionality within the patching is highly improved within the solution. Our assessment engine is completely rewritten. It doesn't take a lot of CPU and memory cycles whenever it's performing the assessment. The overall cycle in terms of evaluation on the endpoint, that runs very frequently. We keep running patch assessments at every 4-hour interval on the endpoint, trying to figure out what is available. We are now showcasing and computing the patch compliance scores, which was not available. Everything is driven by policies where you could have multiple combinations and functions in terms of assigning and updating those actions down on the endpoint. Reporting function is definitely improved with the overall actions that we are performing, and definitely we have a dashboard that you can also look at and see what's the overall patch compliance that's coming out. But in general, from an overall assessment and improvement in terms of deployment, we see a far more improved results with our current patching function that is made available. All right, this seems to become a patching conversation, but we'll continue with that. Is there a place that we can request additional third-party tools to be patched? Yes, and we highly recommend to use our virtual community. We as product teams are constantly monitoring those things out, trying to figure out any improvements coming up from that. But just to give you an update, not all third-party applications we may be able to add because of the licensing and other terms and conditions that we need to make sure that we are fulfilling all those things out. But feel free to share any application list that you feel we should be actively covering it up. We can definitely do a full evaluation around those applications, and if that fits our criteria in terms of all the legalities and the functions, the way by which we can figure out what's the version upgrade available. There's no paywall in terms of downloading and installing it, or all those criterias. In such cases, absolutely, that would be really helpful if you can share some of those items out for us. All right, next one. We would like to see a pre-update reboot option like Automate. Would like to see a pre-update option. Again, Marcus, are you referring to like before a reboot happens, you want to perform certain actions and then proceed further for a reboot? If that's what you're looking for, yes, those were some of the items that we got as a feedback. We are evaluating both pre and post, and again, something that I'll try and relate it. Let us know if that's right for you or that's what you're looking for. So we got some requests from partners where they want to turn off some applications or gracefully shut down before we initiate the reboots and stuff. So we are looking at options by which we can provide you a section that will say pre-scripts to be executed. And after the reboots are completed, we do a general assessment on that endpoint. So we could do a post script as well in terms of turning them on or invoking that application just to make that thing work. If that's what you're looking for, that is something on our roadmap that we are looking at it.
Amit, if I may cut in on that, what they were asking is what they want to do is reboot before Windows updates occur, then have the updates occur, and then reboot again after. So in Automate, you have the option of rebooting the machines first before they start patching. That way, if there's a leftover pending reboot, that will get done before the next attempt at updates is installed. So that's what they were looking for.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Dave, for clarifying that. So when we're looking at the pre-scripts and proscripts, we are kind of making it open or generic enough that you could define any script that you would have defined, and we definitely have a reboot script available. Absolutely, we can go for a reboot, and then as a post actions, we could initiate the patching. But in general, the way how Microsoft deals with that is if there is a pending reboot available, the system won't allow us to do further patching on those endpoints. But if the patch cycle comes over, we can definitely look at it. But definitely there could be variations in terms of what you're looking for, and that should get solved as a part of our pre and post. All right, is there any documentation on the process that NOC uses to test or certify patches, documentation that can be provided if needed for our customers' annual security audits? There is a documentation. I'll find that and send that over to you. But if you look for NOC patching within that, NOC testing specifically, you should be able to find a document around that which shows a cycle of when the patch was rebooted. Within 7 days, we certify those patches out, and it's ready for the patching cycle to go through it. So as soon as the patches are kind of approved by the system, or if the partner approves it, either of those actions, we should be able to utilize the patch policies to trigger the deployment, reboots, and other actions around the same time. All right. Great. Any other questions? Wow. All right, no more questions? We'll wait for another minute in case if somebody can think about it, ask questions. So ask anything about policy groups or anything else that you have in your mind. All right, what's on the next week's session? Next week, we're going to be focusing on integrations. Can you show us the scripting? Not sure I completely get that question, Marcus. Anything specific to scripting? Because we actually had a similar webinar series. There are some recorded videos. We can share those links. There's a YouTube link available, and that's all these items are also available on our virtual community that would set you what you're looking for. The pre-reboot thing, that's work in progress. We are evaluating options. So I don't have it handy, else I would have definitely shown you that how you set it up. But when that comes in, it is going to be pre-baked within the policies itself. So it is going to be available. You don't need to. So one thing that we are trying to do across all the areas is consolidate data configurations and everything under one roof. So when you're setting up the policies, you see within the patching also, if I go down to the patching one here, So if you see, these are the actual patch configurations at the top, and here is basically the notification part that goes down on the endpoint. And soon we are going to add an option over here which allows you to do a forced reboot, where you can let the user snooze the reboot for 4 times, 5 times. You can set the 6th time is a forced reboot. That's something that we're working on, and we're also allowing you to also set the dynamic messaging that would go out on the endpoint. So far, we have been using our static messaging that was available, but you should be able to go ahead and further take that out based on your needs, on what message should go up. Coming up next would be more of branding update within the reboot prompts that are going out from the patching, and then we are also looking at more options up there. Great. All right, more questions. Any news on when the dashboard will be available to drill down like Continuum could do with? Actually, the dashboard is allowing you to do a drill down. So let's quickly load the dashboard, and when you see there are a couple of things that's available on the dashboard. On the right-hand side top corner, you will see the company and site as the filter. You could do the filter. There's a real-time refresh button available. But let's say here is 88% of the patch compliance. You can click on that particular number. It takes you directly to the devices page, and it'll make sure that the appropriate filters that I clicked on is also pre-selected to that. So I can see that. And the other patch, other items that we have here is one, if the machine is pending for a reboot, what is the patch compliance score over there? It also shows you if your the OS found on the machine is basically an end of support, third party, which is the application update. This is all available, and everything is clickable, whatever you see. So here I have no policy assigned, and if I click on that, it'll take me back to my devices page. So either I can perform certain actions. The whole point of you trying to build that particular dashboard was to bring things more actionable for you. So now I narrowed down that particular thing. You could select that particular device, use the automation, and perform additional functions as you need it. Right, for things like that, are there videos or screenshots for that? Again, I lost context. Well, can you elaborate that, Harry? And I think you're referring to scripting that you're asking for. Not yet. We don't have that ready yet. One thing that we are going to start pretty soon on our side is these future items that we are going to work. We'll start some of the threads within the community, virtual community. So stay tuned on the virtual community. Please share your feedback. Please share your inputs. That'll help us improve our product and take it to the next level that we want. And definitely we want to make sure that everybody's heard. Once we finalize the design and functions around that, we will also try and post some mock-ups and details that you can see and share feedback as well. Just an example for each setting of what the user experience will be. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to take it up over there. We are looking for always reboot option, reboot endpoint before update. Absolutely, we can do that as well. As mentioned within the scripting, if that's the most asked item that you want to do a reboot before the patching actually occurs, it might be a checkbox which says, all right, do this or do this automation. Either ways, it's technically or practically one and the same. But we again definitely want to hear your feedback. And if that's more widely used, we might make that as a default option to just do a checkbox instead of trying to get more detailed into the automation task or other functions. All right. Any other questions, anybody? All right, then we'll say goodbye for today. Do meet us next week again. We'll continue our Mastering RMM sessions. with other items. That's integrations on the deck for the discussion. And we'll have a similar webinar to make it more of a Q&A between product and yourself. So thank you very much for joining in today. See you. Bye.